Morning. Welcome to Meet the Masters of Insurance webinar series. I'm Lawrence Geller, the founder of ForAdvisorsOnly.com. This is the 19th of what we expect to be a great many webinars with Canadians who've dedicated their careers to learning the art and science of insurance sales and service. Webinars in this series are now scheduled through the end of this year, and more are being added to the schedule daily. Over the years, I've observed that every successful insurance agent who I've met has succeeded differently, even if they're in the same field, deal with similar clients, and even if they are related or in business together. This is what makes the sale and servicing of insurance one of the best careers that I can imagine. It is possible to become a success in our business with diligence, integrity, and experience. With this webinar series, we intend to prove that any type of person can succeed with time and hard, thoughtful work. Our goal is to create a video record for each of these masters of insurance so that some of their expertise and experience will be available to anyone who'd like to learn from. Today, we have David Hull, President and CEO of Hull Life Insurance Corporation with us. David is known as a straight shooter, a consummate pro, and an insurance trailblazer. He's the son and grandson of industry legends. Rodney Hull was his grandfather and Toby Hull is his father. David is widely respected and widely known for his no-nonsense style, his deep insurance knowledge, and his own unique way of doing business. Always genuinely interested in the welfare of his clients, he works dedicatedly with affluent entrepreneurs and business owners, helping them plan wisely and mitigate risk at each stage of their professional and personal lives. Since 1978, David has helped hundreds of families, professionals, and business leaders secure their future with innovative life, disability, and critical illness solutions to provide ultimate peace of mind. David has been a member of the MDRT for 40 years with 15 top-of-the-table qualifications. He's also a founding member of CALU, the Conference of Advanced Life Underwriting. In his spare time, David enjoys fitness and spending time with his family, including his wife, Marilyn, his 4 children, and 3 grandchildren.
6.
Most learn the business of insurance from a textbook or at a program in business school. For a select few, however, it's in their DNA, where the knowledge is passed down from father to son and from generation to generation. This is the case with Hull Life Insurance Corporation, where an inherited passion for risk management, genuine care for clients, and a true mastery of the field of life insurance has been alive and well for 4 generations now. The Hull Insurance Corporation provides individuals and business owners with insurance to protect themselves and their businesses in the event of a sudden death, a critical illness, or disability. David's children are now joining him in the business, and Julian Wise will be interviewing David. We've now booked webinar interviews through the end of 2024, with new dates being added daily. Good morning. Over to you, David and Julian.
David, thank you so much for participating in this.
You're welcome.
I hope it's not painful for you.
I hope not. Shouldn't be with you, Julian.
Bless your heart. David, first question, I guess, is how did you get started in this business?
Well, I got started in the business in 1978. Prior to coming into the life insurance business, I got my first job at Royal Insurance in the property and casualty business. And then I guess I was there for sort of a year and a half or 2 years. And my father also had a property and casualty business. So I decided to go work there. And then, as I started selling house insurance and car insurance, I thought that one of the opportunities might be to start selling some life insurance to the same people. So I started back in 1978. I just was sort of selling as a package, one interview type sale. You want to save 25, you want to save $50 a month. So, I started that way and grew my business from there on.
So what are the factors that went into you choosing the life insurance business? What appeal did it have for you?
Well, first of all, I guess my grandfather had been in it for a long time. My father had been in it, for a long, long time, and I saw that their success and their genuine appreciation for wanting to help people solve problems. I mean, one of the beautiful things about our business is if you sit and ask a client or a prospect what got them started in business, I mean, they'll sit and they'll tell you, for hours. They love talking about their businesses and what makes them successful. And what we try and do is give them some ideas so that they can continue that success to the next generation, or at least have some estate planning so that they can, retire when they want to get out of the business.
David, that's great. And so let's go take you back, though, to 1976. How did you first find clients when you first started?
I started selling my property and casualty clients. That's where it started, and referred. I mean, back then, 25, all you had to do was two or three sales a week at $50 a month, and you were making some good money. So, and the other thing I do back then, which is obviously a lot different than I do now, anything that moved back in 1978 was a prospect. I can remember selling the Grandin toy person when they came into the office, the coffee machine. And actually, it's interesting, the Grandin toy, it was a $25 a month, deal at first, and he moved on into a large real estate practice, commercial and personal, and he's become a very large client as well. So I found that when we started, my personal observation is where I sort of started from.
So, what disciplines did you develop at an early stage that helped you excel?
Well, it's different. I guess once again, it's different now because I was in the office at 7:30 in the morning, every single morning, usually making phone calls, and I worked nights too. Even when my children, as they came along and got older, even though I worked nights, I found time to, for the T-ball and everything else. But I worked a lot of nights, and I don't now because obviously I'm older and I'm more experienced, and I sort of pick and choose what I like to do now versus just doing anything that you could make a buck from.
So what are your unique abilities? How would you characterize them?
Well, I have a very good ability to read people. I can sit with a person, and generally speaking, you get an idea in the first 10 minutes or 15 minutes of dealing with somebody, whether whether you're dealing with what I call an endless prospect, or somebody who's actually going to turn into a client. Generally speaking, I'll have one or two meetings with a client, and if I don't get to the point where I can at least sell a medical, then I generally move on, because although in some of the bigger cases, it does take time to develop relationships. I don't want to waste a lot of time just dealing with prospects. I want to deal with people that I can help, help them long term.
So tell me about your work pattern now. How many people do you see in a week? And
Well, what I still try to do, I used to have a goal of 100 cases a year, 100 policies a year. I probably still do 40 or 50 now. And I try to, I try to see 3 or 4 people still a week if I can. I mean, it depends. You end up, opening up cases, and you end up going back because they're bigger cases, and you end up seeing the same, person, more than once, as opposed to the smaller sale when I was newer in the business. But I still I have to keep active. I mean, I love doing what I do. I like to, sell life insurance, help people, and that's what I like and enjoy doing.
so was there anything in the beginning part of your career that you were afraid of doing?
Well, it's always, listen, it's still now is, doing any call that I never did a lot of cold calls, but warm calls. What I usually have is I have a notepad still I carry it in my pocket and make a note when I meet somebody. I can write down their name and contact information, and then I'll call them at some point down the road, usually fairly soon after I meet them. And the one question I always ask them every single time I call somebody, it starts with the same question. It's simple. And it's the same. The question I use every time is, would you have any objections to reviewing your current life insurance program with me? Well, that question's a lot easier to answer no to than it is yes. And it opens up all sorts of doors as far as what they'll say, well, I don't have any, well, I was thinking of doing it. I mean, it's just an endless amount of leads when you ask that question, I find.
Has the demographic of your clients changed over the years?
Most of my clients are still in Toronto, downtown. I've been working downtown here, I guess, for 40 years now. So, I've always had the ability to see most of my clients from downtown, although, if you're dealing with small businesses, like I've done a lot over the years, people don't come and see in the office. I mean, you can say you got your wish list, I get everybody in to see me downtown. That it doesn't work, because small business people are busy at their own thing. And if you want to see them, then you've got to be persistent and go see them at their place of work, generally speaking.
Are you still working with the people that you worked with in the early years, or have you transitioned away from them and dedicated them to somebody else?
First of all, I will never dedicate any of my clients to somebody else. Okay. I believe that when I first started in the business, these people helped me get started in the business. So I still look after the clients, and I never will give any clients away. Do I still work with some of the same clients? For sure. Some of these people have grown, and as a result of their growth, it's allowed me to grow as well. So I never get rid of any clients. Obviously, you spend time and try to be effective dealing with the prospects and clients that are gonna, work out the best for you. But I never neglect anybody.
Has your methodology changed over time in your work habits?
Yeah, I work. I mean, listen, I like to play hard and I work hard. I just don't do them at the same time anymore. So I find that I find that, yeah, I don't come in as early in the morning, and I find that I spend more time on concentrating on opportunities that I think are going to lead, and I spend more time with people getting facts and information and leading to the next step. I get into a lot more detail, like everybody, versus when you first started in the business, you just were trying to develop a block of business. I mean, I've still got probably 700 clients or 600 clients, and a lot of them have 4, 5, 6 policies. So
Wow. So how do the client profiles look today compared to what they were looking like at the beginning?
well, I mean, you always deal with your top 20. So, I mean, at the beginning you had a lot of small policies, and today I've got, every year you're adding to two different, different products. What's changed now, though, is, like, because of my age, even though I'm not that old, you tend to sell now more for, reducing the tax liabilities and capital gains and estate preservation, versus in the old day when you first started in the business, you're selling life insurance basically as a savings product or something that's going to provide some income to the family of somebody who dies.
When people ask you what you do for a living, how do you explain it?
I tell them I sell life insurance. There's no running around the bend. I mean, listen, there's over the years you meet different people who describe themselves as financial planners and all different things. But I sell life insurance. I try and help people do what's going to make them solve their problems in the event somebody dies prematurely, or the business, something happens to a partnership in the business. So I'm always just trying to solve people's problems that way.
Do you do a full service for them, or do you do their investments or their retirement planning, or what's your
No, I've never. When I
special?
first started in the business, I've never really done much investment business. I found it, I guess a lot of the advisors I knew who did it, I mean, it was an easy way to, I guess, earn a living until that, the investment world changed. And I think it's very, very competitive now. And I think you really have to pick a niche of what you like doing and concentrate on that. So no, I don't get into the money business anymore.
What is the most important thing that you did as a new advisor?
Sorry?
What is the most important thing that you did as a new advisor to reach your level of success?
I just discipline, make sure I did business all the time. I mean, making phone calls. Nothing happens till you make a phone call in this business. Like nothing happens. I mean, if you don't make the phone calls and see the people, especially early in your career, you're not going to make it. Listen, today, I mean, if you take a look at the average number of policies that your average advisor is selling, I mean, it is not very many. And if you want to build a business that you can pass on or possibly sell or whatever you want to do with it, you've got to have a base of, I'd say once you get to 300 or 400 clients, then you can 10% of your business is going to repeat every year. I mean, people buy insurance today for one reason, but generally speaking, it's been my observation that nobody ever buys all the life insurance they need at once. So you're going to have way more opportunities to sell them more insurance. And the other thing I do is that, and you learn this over time, and I never get into an argument with a client over term or permanent life insurance. Okay, I sell them what they want the first time, and then I sell them what I think they should have the second time, because it's very much a different situation when you're trying to deal with a client versus a prospect. So I don't argue. They want to buy $5 million worth of term insurance, I'll give them the options of permanent or whatever. But if they want to buy the $5 million, I'll sell them the $5 million worth of term insurance, because then you've got a client that you can work with down the road. And as that client gets older, he's going to realize that the term insurance is not going to do what he expected it to do.
How do you describe the difference between term and permanent to people?
Well, I mean, one of the simplest ways is it's like renting or buying. And if you take a look at all the death claims, and I think I'm pretty close on this statistic, less than 5% of all death claims are on term insurance because it's never in force when a person dies. I mean, you take a look at people who retire, they lose their group insurance. And what you're doing, and what I explain to clients is, what you're doing when you buy term insurance is you're making a bet with the insurance company. You're saying, I'm going to die. And the insurance company says, no, we think you're going to live, but what we're going to do is we're going to hedge our bets. So we're going to increase the premiums every 10, 15, 20 years. And then if somebody's crazy enough to pay the rates, we're just going to cut the policy off at age 85. So the insurance company wins in every single case, and the person's family or their business or estate, they lose in every single case, almost every case. I mean, we do have some people who die prematurely.
But not many, right?
Not many.
How did study groups or degrees, do you have CLUs and things like that, or?
Yeah, I have my CLU and CHFC, and we have a study group with Lawrence, as you're aware, every the last Wednesday or the last Wednesday of every month, which I found very beneficial. I find it very helpful to keep up with what is going on in the industry, and it's not something that I'm probably going to take the time to sit down and read about and all this sort of thing. So having these study groups every once a month really helps me keep up to date with what's going on in the industry, especially when we've got somebody like Lawrence who is very technical and knows what's going on in almost every case.
What role has $1 Million Roundtable played in your life, and does it still play that role?
I'm still a member of the $1 Million Roundtable. One of the reasons I am is because it gave me, and I know a lot of advisors that I grew up with have dropped the $1 Million Roundtable. That was probably one of the most important things when I was younger, because you'd go to these meetings and you'd really get an idea of what everybody else was doing, and you get true stories. I know there was a lot of hurrahs and all that sort of thing, but that was back, when we started in the business, and we used to go every year for, I don't know how many years I went, probably 15 or 20 years. And I found that it was really a great learning experience. You meet people, you get other ideas, you see some true stories, and you see, some that may not be. But once CALU came along, I found that sort of replaced it. And, CALU has been a great place for knowledge in that. I probably got more knowledge out of CALU, but the sort of, production goals and the levels you're trying to achieve, I found that came a lot more out of the $1 Million Roundtable.
Thanks, David. David, what critical events have happened in your career that have caused you to pause and reevaluate your business?
I'm not so sure I had to reevaluate, but when my brother and I left my father years ago, probably I'm going to say 25 years ago, and moving out on our own was I was terrified. I mean, when we moved out on our own, I first of all I had to find some office space, which we have now. And we looked at downtown. We were looking at all sort of AAA, and my wife said to me, she was helping us looking. She said, "Why don't you look at that building over there?" And I said, "It's got no windows in it. How are we gonna deal with all this?" So anyway, we came to this building, and it was renovated, and we put everything together. And although I was worried about what was going to happen, everything worked out fine. You see, I've been working with my dad for a long time, and one of the things that's been helpful to me on getting out of this business on my own is that I knew I had the ability to grow on my own. And sure, people thought that maybe, well, it's Toby's son and, he's been this, that, and the other thing. But I knew I could do the business on my own and grow my own business. And, that's what I've done. And, I'm proud of what we've done as an organization.
Are you and your brother still working together?
Yeah, my brother and I do work with each other. We each have our separate businesses, and then we purchased a block of business from my father several years ago. But we work with each together, and I also have a son and a daughter who have also come into the business, which I feel very comfortable with because it's at least some sort of transition plan. I don't really know what I would have done if I didn't have that sort of transition plan. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to quit, and they know that, but at least it gives them an opportunity to meet some of my clients, get involved with some of my clients, and my clients now understand that I have a transition plan, because that question does come up. You get a client, you send him a summary of his 25 policies, and he says, "Dave, I don't understand all this, but I'm going to understand a lot less if you're not here to explain it to me." So having my kids involved is been a help.
So tell me a little bit more about your office. How many people do you have? What do they do? What does having them allow you to focus on?
Well, I'll tell you, I've been the luckiest guy in the world because I've had an assistant, Elaine, with me. Now, I'm gonna guess here, but I think she's been with me for 32 years now. And listen, staying with me for 32 years is definitely a challenge. So I've had her, and she's done everything that's been great. I also have when we bought my father's business, there's a gentleman named Page. He came with us. He does all the administration on that block of business. My brother has an assistant, and then I've got my son who's been and my daughter in the business. My daughter's does some administration and sales. My son is almost 100% sales, and he's also very good at technical stuff, as most 30-year-olds are. They seem to be able to get organized and figure that sort of thing out. So he's also been a great asset to the business.
What does having them all allow you to focus on?
Well, I mean, it allows me to focus on sales, which I like to do. But it's like anything in life, you don't want to give it up. I still talk to some people who I haven't bought a policy in a long time, but it allows me to do more sales, and I get my son and daughter involved in meetings. They come with me, and I go help them on meetings, and it's just sort of interaction that allows us to work better together.
What would they say about you as their employer?
Well, listen, I'm not. I'm a type A person, and I need things to work sort of the way I want them to work, and I don't do anything to deal with any presentation with clients that's not, in my mind, the way it should be done. There are no shortcuts. There's, first of all, one thing I've tried to explain to both my kids over and over, both my children over and over again, you have to have the facts. And if you have to take more time to get a complete picture of what's going on, that's probably, in my opinion, way more important than the presentation. I spend 90% of the time preparing to see a prospect or a client, and 10% of the time actually doing the presentation. Because if you're missing a key fact, the person's not going to buy. People don't buy what they don't understand, and there's nothing worse than going in an interview and you find out that, whoops, you got a partner in the business and you never knew that before. So I've tried to tell them that you've got to spend time in getting the details, and there are no shortcuts in this business.
If I asked you why your clients do business with you, I mean, if I asked them why they do business with you, what would they say?
I think my clients would say they trust me to look after their insurance needs. As you go on in time, you start out selling people insurance, and you spend, a fair bit of time with them. But I'm also very respectful of people's time. So when I meet a client or a prospect, I'm very organized. Okay, I'm organized. I know their time is valuable, and I like to get out to see them, and I also I respect their time. I also overservice all my clients. I mean, compared to what I would say the advisor that's been in the business as long as I do, I mean, I make sure that they've got summaries whenever they need them, and we do stuff that I would say is over and above what you have to do. But it's worked well for me in the business because I've got a great group of clients, and it's worked out well.
So what are the things that you do to overservice them?
Well, I make sure I make sure that they've got up-to-date summaries on what's going on in their policies, and what I find is as you get older in this business, a lot of your clients, as you get into bigger sales and that, they want to know what's going on, and they get more involved than just well, you sold me $100 a month 25 years ago. Today, what they're doing is they're getting in their 60s and their 70s, and some of them are actually starting to realize that nobody gets out of this world alive. So they do start to realize that the end is going to come. When you're 35 years old, I don't have to deal with oh, Dave, I don't need to deal with this. I got lots of time, and then one of the things that comes up, and it's come up more than once, is I have clients, people that I've dealt with for 30 years, get mad at me for not selling them enough permanent life insurance. Like it's not my fault. They say, well, why didn't you sell me more of this? And I said, well, you remember that interview when I first tried to sell you anything, how mad you got, and then I'm not spending all this money and everything. Because what happens is they get older and they look at their insurance portfolio, and a lot of them still have some term insurance. And now what are we going to do? We can't convert the term insurance because I can't pay for it. So, they're either going to die early, which most of them don't, or they're going to end up with less insurance than what they thought. Because insurance is magic. I mean, when they walk out, money walks in.
Wow. What other phrases do you use that capture their attention as much as that one? You must.
Well, I just think you have to buy it today when you're healthy. So you've got it when you need it. So you've got it when one of the biggest things, you got to buy life insurance when you don't need it. Okay, because by the time you need it, it's too late. You get sick, you get older, you get high blood pressure. People change as they get older. When you're young, 35 years old, almost anybody can buy life insurance. When you're 65 or 70, yeah, most people can buy life insurance, but the premiums are going up. There's, they get a little high blood pressure. They get a little of, this, that, and the other thing. So the one thing that you can never, ever, and I tell when I'm dealing with my daughters and sons, prospects and clients, you can never duplicate your age. I mean, when you're 40 years old, I mean, I wish, prospects and clients that I deal with today, they'd love to pay that rate. They'd buy all they could. But the fact that you're never going to duplicate that age, and you're never going to duplicate that health. I mean, it's on our website, but I can tell you, one of the first sales that I ever made was to a gentleman. I sold $500,000 worth of life insurance and some disability insurance. And he phoned me up. He was going out on his own in real estate one day and said, listen, I'd like to increase the $500,000 to $1 million. I said, fine. And he says, my disability insurance is fine. And to make a long story short, when he was having his paramedical, the nurse felt his neck and there was a lump there. And anyway, he turned out that he had cancer. This was in 1979, okay? And he went on disability, and he just got off it at 65. And if you go to our website, I mean, he wrote a letter on our website, but he believes that he would not be alive today if it hadn't been for the disability insurance that we sold him. And it's just having experiences and things like that is something you'll never duplicate in any other business.
Wow. So to pull back a little bit, what are your thoughts on the industry or the profession and how it's changed over time?
Well, first of all, I have no idea how you can get in this business today and even have a hope like you used to be able to. They had training programs before. I mean, I don't think that people are coming into this business to help, sell life insurance the way we used to do it. First of all, the training programs aren't there the way they used to be, although, some will argue they are, they're not. I mean, the old London Life training program, it's not there anymore. And the other thing is, I find that even a lot of the, young advisors that are coming into this business, they're selling life insurance for different reasons than what I started selling life insurance for. A lot of them come into it and it's a tax shelter and it'll dance like this and waddle like that, versus selling life insurance that's going to provide somebody with a benefit when you die. Because who knows whether, with all the tax gimmicks and stuff that people, run around telling people about, who knows whether those policies are going to survive the test of time. But if you just sell a straight vanilla whole life insurance, it's going to survive the test of time. And, if you want to pay for it forever, pay for it forever. If you want to stop in 20 years, stop in 20 years. But nothing's going to happen to that. Whereas when all the other, well, we're going to do this and we're going to take money out of here, we're going to place it over here, and we're going to let this do that. I mean, you never know what's going to happen.
When you started, were you dealing primarily with one company?
Yes, when I was started, I was dealing with one company. And I can honestly say that 99% of my business still goes to that one company. And there's a reason for it. I was even selling that company's products with term insurance when they weren't that competitive. And one of the reasons I do that is because, first of all, they've got a very competitive whole life product that stood the test of time. Okay. The second thing is, when you deal with a company for 45 years, you get to know the people there. You get to know what's going on. You get to know what your underwriters do and what they don't do. And, maybe you've got a case in underwriting where it's borderline and, because of the business you've placed with that company, maybe they're going to try and go to that extra bat to get the case standard or that sort of thing. I just cannot imagine. Now, we do deal with a few other companies, but I cannot imagine dealing with 6 or 7 life insurance companies. But you see, I sell life insurance differently than I don't sell from an illustration point of view. I don't line up 7 companies along the desk here and say, look, you got to go with this one. It's the cheapest. Because whatever you buy today, I can guarantee you, if it's the cheapest today, it's not going to be the cheapest tomorrow. So if you're selling illustrations and you're selling price, all you're doing is setting up the next advisor or somebody else to come in and say, well, look, I can give you a better deal. I can give you a better price. My dividends are better. My term insurance is better. So I never sell based on illustrations and price. Now, I do obviously show illustrations, but I don't have 3 or 4 lined up.
And do your clients question you about that?
You know what? You used to get more of that, and I used to have to, on occasion deal with that. But what's happened in this industry, the consolidation? I mean, you got London Life, Canada Life, Great West. They're all owned by the same, thing, and you got Manulife, but there's only 4 or 5 big players, and they're all very, very, very close. Certainly in premiums. Now you get the argument, well, my dividends are projected better than this, but you can't sell based on total cash value projections. Because I can guarantee you one thing, whatever we show on any of these illustrations in 10 or 20 or 30 years, that number's irrelevant because that's not going to be the number it is. It's going to be higher or it's going to be lower, but it's not going to be that number because, everything changes. So why get people all excited about, numbers that may not, well, certainly won't be the same as what you showed them.
Huh. What guidance or advice would you have for someone just starting in the business? For example,
well, I'll tell you, guidance for somebody starting in this business, I would say that there's no better profession if you really want to reach for the sky. But it's very disciplined today. You've got to, if you want to build a block of business, you've got to have the discipline to, as I said, activity is the key. You've got to build a group of clients. And one of the reasons you want to do that is because, policies come off the books for different reasons. People cancel them. They do this, they do that, bankruptcy, whatever. But if you have a block of a lot of policies, no one policy ever coming off is going to hurt you. If you're spending your time, and I'm talking about the younger group, just doing 3 or 4 sales a year, and one of those policies comes off the books, that's going to hurt you, financially. And so I find it, if you spread the risk around a bunch of policies, it certainly hurts a lot less.
What part of the business did you find difficult in the early years?
Corporate life insurance, when we started, understanding everything that's going on. I'm still not an expert, but as far as a lot of the technical details. But that was basically the thing. I sold a lot. My early sales, a lot of them were personal because the corporate, you've got to know what you're talking about when you go see. I get it. You know more than the prospect most of the time, but you've got to understand what's going on. You've got to try and have a good handle on the tax laws and the capital gains and what's going on generally in the industry, which we get updated once a year from CALU, basically. And that's why we have the conference in Ottawa.
Has that changed for you? Have you switched over more to corporate life insurance?
Yeah, I mean, because most people that I've dealt with own some sort of business or they're entrepreneurs and it has become corporate. If for nothing else, people who are successful end up with holding companies and to shelter some of their assets in. So it's become a lot more that way.
What is bright about the future of our industry?
Well, I think the fact that we we haven't certainly the fact that we can continue to sell this great product, and generally speaking, because of our association with organizations like CALU, we've kept this product very, very attractive from both a corporate and a personal view. And when I say that, I mean, we've had some products that have been, people have tried to play with in the past, and the CRA has come in and said, well, you can't do this and you can't do that. And that's fine. But for the most part, if you're honest and you sell insurance the way it's supposed to be sold, I mean, the rules are there and nothing's really changed over the last, I get it. They've changed the, amount you can do this and the taxable portion of the cash values and that sort of thing. But generally speaking, our product has stood the test of time.
What would you say are the factors that account for your success in our field? And how do you measure success?
Well, first of all, discipline, the fact that I come to work every day, and like doing what I do, I think is, it's very easy in this business to get sidetracked. First of all, I would say to anybody coming in this business, If you're going to dedicate yourself to the business, make sure it's to the life insurance business. And don't get sidetracked by going out and doing all sorts of other investments and putting money here and putting money there, because you're going to get sidetracked, and you want to be able to focus on what is important. And I don't know very many successful people in this business over the years that haven't just sold life insurance 100% of the time. I mean, most of the successful advisors in our business, that's all they've done. And it's very easy to get sidetracked into something else because it looks easier or it looks more attractive. But long term, you got to focus, and you got to focus on one area that you feel comfortable with.
But what have you run towards in your career? What have you really embraced?
What I've really enjoyed is just consistently meeting different types of people. I mean, every single person you meet's got some idea. And I've also, really embraced what this product can do. And I tell you, I'll tell a bit of a story, but what really has stood out in my industry is that timing means everything. People say that they buy life insurance. Many times you run into different cases where they buy life insurance and it's a timing thing. Well, Dave, call me in a year, and you call a guy, whoops, I bought it from somebody else. But I remember a case, and he was a wonderful, wonderful friend and a wonderful friend of mine, and he had a couple of $1 million worth of life insurance. And, he'd struggled financially for a long time. And he had $2 million worth, a couple of $1 million worth of life insurance. So we met him at our local hangout one night, and his wife said, listen, you're paying $5 or $6 grand a month for life insurance. We can't afford this anymore. You're gonna have to tell Hull that, he's gonna have to, reduce the premiums. So I met the gentleman who became a really close friend of mine, and I met him and I said, listen, you don't need 2 million insurance. I agree, you need 4. So he goes home and meets his wife, and she said, well, how did the meeting go? And he says, well, I came to cut it to 1, and Hull says I need 4. So he goes for his medical, and everything's fine. He'd had some chest pains and everything's fine. And I remember sitting in my office, and his policy was on my desk in April to deliver it. And I phoned him up and said, look, we got to go through this. You need 4 million. I went and saw him, and he took it. A month later, he was diagnosed with small cell lung cancer. The chest pains were coming from his lungs, not from his heart. And unfortunately, he passed away 5 years ago. But I can tell you, the $4 million worth of life insurance that family got. Actually, I saw the widow. Saw the widow last night, and we briefly talked about it. But like 2 million wouldn't have made it. I mean, 4 million, yeah, it's okay. Could she have used 6? Yeah. I mean, but that sort of lesson you don't get in any other business. It doesn't matter how much money you can make. You don't learn those sort of things. Those are real life events that affect people's lives. I mean, what other business do you know of where you affect people's lives like that? My oldest son, who lives in New York, always tells me, and he's in a private equity business, but he always says, Dad, when you get up in the morning, not only do you make money, but you actually help people achieve their goals and that sort of thing in life. So, I mean, that's an unbelievable way of living your life.
Wow, what a powerful message. David, what have you run away from in your life, and why? What do you wish you'd embraced more?
I'm not sure there's a lot I wish I embraced more, but I mean, obviously I'm at the stage in my life where I've decided what clients I want to work with. And I spend most of my time in that area. I do, as I said, I probably do 30 cases a year, and I choose, but I've earned, in my opinion, I've earned that. I've spent countless hours and years working in this business to make it what it is today. So I've earned the right to now choose what I'd like to do in the business and, what I don't like to do. But, I try to, one of my goals a few years ago is I try to take 12 weeks a year off. Now, people say that, when are you going to retire? What am I going to retire from? I got 12 weeks a year now that, so it ends up at 13 or 14. I'm never going to get tired of sitting and talking to people and picking up the phone and finding out, what's new, what's going on, what's going to lead to the, next sale or, I just never get tired of talking to people.
What advice would you give yourself if you were starting fresh again?
Well, I think, the one I would probably start again. I would probably do try and focus more on the I guess what I'd do is I'd probably focus more on the fact finding and getting a lot more details into people's lives than I did initially. As I said at the beginning of the interview, anything that moved when I started in this business was a prospect. Okay, so today it's not the way it works. You tend to get into more details as a sort of try and do a total needs versus just selling a package. Although to get started in the business, I think selling the package still works very well. But you've got to, as I said before, you got to make sure you have all the details about what's going on.
David, if you don't mind me asking, what do you do with that 12 weeks a year? What hobbies do you do? What do you travel? What?
We travel a bit. When we were lucky enough to the company that we were with, we went on all the conferences and that sort of thing. But the 12 weeks a year, I try to go back and forth. We have a place, we've been lucky enough to have a place in Florida. So I go back and forth to there, and we have a place in Muskoka, and I go back and forth to there. And then I also got involved in what we call charity poker runs a few years ago. And we have what we call poker run boats, and we go raise money, 4 or 5 events a year for charities. And I donate every year to the hospital. We're co-sponsors for the Sunnybrook golf tournament, which is a major event that my wife's been immersed in for the last, I don't know, 15 years or so. So I mean, I really like to try and give back to those people who aren't as fortunate as I am. I mean, I've been very, very lucky. I mean, I'm healthy, touch wood. My kids are healthy. My 6 grandchildren are healthy. I mean, you can't ask for anything more. I mean, you cannot ask for anything more.
What a wonderful place to be. Question, who has had the most impact on your life and why?
Well, I guess, I got to get out of the business and, take my sales hat. I guess I got to honestly tell you that my wife has had the most impact on my life and my business. When I started in this business, she said, listen, all you got to do, I'll do everything else. All you got to do is go out and make a living at selling this insurance stuff, and, I'll take care of the rest. Well, it grew beyond that. And which she reminds me, a lot of people she met, she's done a lot of volunteer work over her life. And a lot of the people she met have become clients of mine because she's, shall we say, she might have a smoother touch to the way she deals with people than sometimes I do. But she has been an incredible influence on my actual business. As far as getting into the business, my father and the fact that my grandfather was in the business and led Mutual Life for a long time, that had a big influence on what I did as well. Because what I learned, that I went to Upper Canada College, and at grade 13 I'd had enough. I didn't go to university, so I went out and worked right away. But the one thing that school taught me was how to work. And that's probably one of the biggest challenges that the young person coming into this business has today. It's easy to make a little bit of money in this business, but it isn't that tougher to elevate yourself so you can make a lot more money if you just do the things and get yourself disciplined to do those things constantly.
What are the 3 things that are still on your bucket list?
Well, I guess my bucket list, I guess we'd like to travel, maybe go over to take a cruise, a river cruise or something. And I don't have a lot of things that I haven't done. I've been fortunate enough to, do most of what I want. And, if I checked out yesterday, I really don't have any regrets on much that I'd I'd like to do. So, I mean, my life is 68 years old, has been very fulfilled. As I said, I'm blessed. There's not much that I think I've missed, and there's not much that I don't do that I that I'm not happy about doing. So,
If all careers paid the same, what would you be doing?
I'd still be doing the same. I'd still be seeing people, because it's a very unique business. First of all, we don't have any inventory sales because I don't have any inventory. Okay, my inventory, the only, the people go. Ours is a people business. We don't have to worry about selling inventory or holding all sorts of inventory, and then worrying about, well, if we don't get rid of this by Friday, we're finished, or that sort of thing. What a beautiful business. I don't even have an inventory. All I got to do is go see somebody, talk to them about what they want to talk about, and they're going to give me a check, and I'm going to make some money.
Huh. What is the most important lesson you've learned from your experiences in life so far?
Well, one of the things that I guess I've learned that's important over the years is that whether you're dealing with clients, whether you're dealing with people, whatever it is, you've got to say, you got to do. If you say something to somebody, you got to do it. And you see different businesses over the years, and you see different people, and they don't react that way. If you say something to somebody, you better do it. You better follow through and make sure it's done, because otherwise it'll lead you to a place where people you won't have that trust. That's what's built my trust. That's why clients trust me, because if I tell them I'm going to do something, I do it.
Can you share a time when you've had to make a difficult decision? And what did you learn from that experience?
Well, I mean, I guess, the difficult decisions, I guess, are I'll tell you, and this is an interesting thing. I had some dealing with a couple of partners a few years ago, and this is in business, and it was not a big sale. Well, maybe it was $40,000 or $50,000 in premium, and so they'd seen another advisor before, and the question came out about non-smoking versus smoking, and when you're doing the apps, and these guys said, well, look, we smoke, but our other advisor is going to give us non-smokers rates. So I walked away from that, and all that's always taught me is that you've got to do what's in the best interest of your client, and you because this policy is this is something you're building for life. And you never want to get into a position where the policy is not going to do what you say it's going to do. So I mean, I've lost deals on that because I find my integrity, my honesty in this business is the most important thing to me.
Huh. What inspires you?
Still, I get inspired by going and making sales. I mean, listen, it's no secret. I enjoy life. I mean, I like boats, cars, playing golf. I like doing all the activities in life, and and spend and I live an expensive lifestyle. So I mean, to do that, you've got to be motivated, and you've got to be able to do a certain amount of business every year. But if you're doing something you like, it's not work. I mean, I don't come to the office, it's not work, it's fun most of the time. I mean, listen, you all get into situations in life, we all do, where you got to put out fires. But honestly, in this business, you don't spend. I found over the years, you don't spend a lot of time putting out fires, and I find actually that the prospects that you tend to have the least issues with are the people that come to you and they just want to buy insurance, and that's the end of it. Whereas the people who come and they fight you over price and this and that. I mean, it's always an issue.
David, if you died last night, what would you have been proudest of having accomplished?
Well, I think first of all,
I don't wish it on you. I don't
uh,
wish it on you.
Sorry?
I don't wish it on you.
No, and I don't either. But I guess I'm very proud of my family and the fact that I got 6 grandkids and that they all look up to me, and that's what it becomes as you get older. When you're younger, it's different. You got different priorities. You don't have to spend as much, you don't spend as much time. And listen, my mother or my father always used to tell me that, you know, as you get older, you're going to be able to count your friends on one hand. Well, listen, I've had, you know, several friends, good friends of mine pass away over the past 10 years. So, you know, life changes, and it realizes that you've only got so much time, and you better make sure that you use it doing what you want to do, because there's no looking back. You can't look back in life on what you should have, could have, would have done. You've got to live for the moment and do what you want to do. And don't say put anything off to tomorrow, because tomorrow may not come. You know, you go to bed one night, you don't wake up. I mean, it's, you know, we all hope that doesn't happen, but it's going to happen someday.
David, what a wonderful, wonderful time we've spent together today. I'm so grateful for you sharing your energy and your experience and your depth with us.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Julian and Lawrence, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Over to Lawrence.
Thank you, gentlemen. That was absolutely stellar. David, there are a number of things that you said that resonate with me. Do your homework, be prepared. Spend 90% of your time getting ready so that you have the answers in advance, so that the client can understand and make an informed decision. Sell the client what they want, and then go back and sell them what they need. Do you still do that? Is that still a big part of how you deal with clients when you first meet them?
Absolutely, I'll still do that, because as I alluded to, it's so much easier dealing with a client who's already paying you than it is a prospect, which you haven't got on the books yet. You can talk to the prospect or the client down the road about whatever you want to talk to him about. But if it's a prospect and he's not your client, then you're dealing with a totally different situation.
Agree with that. You also talked about making choices about dealing with the clients based on their integrity. That a policy goes in force and is only of value if it pays, if it's in force when they die. Can you talk a bit about that again?
Well, I just find that, and touch wood, I've never had a life claim that's denied, and I don't believe I've ever had a legitimate disability claim that's been denied, or a critical illness, and that is totally what this business is about. Because if you're not going to fulfill those promises that you make to people sitting there in front of you and telling them this policy is going to do this and this policy is going to do that. I mean, it's not like selling shoes, okay? You can't come back and you want a refund and you know, I want my money back. These are promises that you're making to the client that have to last 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So you better make sure that you get them right.
You're also a service freak, which I really appreciate. I know that you've had cases where the company, no matter how good they are, have tried to dispute a claim and you've had to go to bat. Does that happen often?
It doesn't happen often. I mean, I've seen it a couple of times, but once again, you know, one of the questions that came up initially when I was talking with Julian is the fact that we place 99% of our business with one company. Because if you have something that comes into a gray area, whether it be a business decision or whatever, you're more than likely going to get something positive if you've got a track record with that company and they know and understand your integrity and honesty.
Well, thank you, David. This has been very informative, and I think the truths that we learned 40 years ago are still true. Work hard, diligently, with intention. Think about the clients first. Stick with your clients and provide them with what they need, information. And they'll stay with you and you'll have a successful and long career. Build a book of business and build a balance sheet. Next week, we'll have David's brother Jeffrey, who has an entirely different history in coming into the business, but who is also equally successful. Following that will be Mr. Bill Bell from Montreal, Barry Pascal's partner, and then Rob Crowder and Don Forbes. We'll then have John Henser, who will be with us, Bob Gould, and then Gord Cowan, and then we may take a break for the August holiday. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week on June the 6th, next Thursday, for Jeffrey Hull. And Julian Wise is good enough to help us and to interview Jeffrey as well. Thank you. Have a great weekend.